All right, let's dive into something pretty profound today. We're cracking open J. Krishnamurti's The Book of Life.
Oh, fantastic choice.
It's full of these like daily meditations, and they really dig into some big questions. Learning, the self, the whole shebang of what it means to really be alive.
Yeah, Krishnamurti, he didn't hold back.
Mm.
Really pushes you to examine, well, pretty much everything, but especially your own mind.
That's it, right. Like, right off the bat, he talks about this difference between just, I don't know, collecting knowledge and what he calls true learning.
Right, and for him, that true learning, it needs a mind that's, like, free, not weighed down by the past.
So not just memorizing facts and figures.
It's more about, like, seeing the world with fresh eyes, no
Yes.
preconceived notions, you know?
So instead of just reading a map, it's actually going on the journey.
There you go. You can know every landmark, every turn, but have you actually experienced the terrain?
Okay, that's a great way to put it. And one of the biggest things he talks about, this obstacle to true learning, is the self.
Right, and he's careful to distinguish. He doesn't mean our true selves, but this kind of constructed self.
This baggage we carry around.
Yeah, like a bundle of, memories, desires, all that conditioning. We mistake that for who we really are.
So how does this constructed self, I guess, how does that get in the way of actually learning and experiencing life fully?
Imagine trying to learn a new language, but you're constantly translating back to your native tongue. You're stuck in those old patterns.
Right, you're not letting the new language actually sink in.
Exactly. And life's the same way. If we approach everything through all our preconceived notions and past hurts, we're not seeing things as they are.
We're seeing them through this filter.
Filter of the self, yeah.
Okay, so he's saying break free from those limitations. But if the self is so ingrained, how do we even begin to do that?
Well, he talks a lot about the power of observation, just becoming aware of our thoughts, our feelings, but without that immediate judgment.
So like if I'm feeling jealous, I shouldn't be like, oh, that's bad.
That's the idea. Is that kind of labeling, it traps us, keeps us from really understanding why we feel that way.
He uses a really cool analogy in one meditation, compares this observation to looking at a leaf.
Oh, I like that one.
Not just seeing leaf, but noticing the shape, the texture, how the light shines through it.
It's in those details, right? The ones we usually miss when our minds are racing.
And that takes us to another big theme for him. Time, or maybe the illusion of time.
He argues that we're so fixated on the past and the future, we miss the only reality we have, this present moment.
Always somewhere else, huh? Reliving yesterday or dreading tomorrow.
Right. And that's where the suffering comes in. Because we're never fully here. He has this phrase.
Oh yeah, dying every day.
Exactly. He's saying to truly understand death, we have to die daily to this idea of a continuous self. Let go of those attachments to the past.
So it's not about literally dying, obviously, but how do we do that? Die every day? I mean,
Right,
what does that even look like?
It's about letting go of our need to control, to know. It's approaching every moment like it's the first time.
With that beginner's mind.
There you go.
Which, now that I say it, reminds me of what he says about knowledge. Sometimes our knowledge can actually block true learning.
It's true. He uses the example of a scientist. If they're so attached to their theories, they might miss a groundbreaking discovery.
Because it doesn't fit in their box.
It challenges everything they thought they knew. He says true learning takes a certain humility
Admitting we don't have all the answers.
and being open to being wrong.
Which makes me think about what he said about happiness. That's not something you chase, but something that just kind of arises when the mind is still.
Yeah, he's talking about a deeper kind of happiness, not that fleeting pleasure, but true contentment.
So many of us are on this like happiness treadmill.
Always looking for the next thing. He uses that sunset metaphor again.
I love that one.
When you really allow yourself to see it, no judgment, you tap into something much deeper than just, oh, pretty colors.
It's about shifting your focus, isn't it? From wanting more to appreciating what is. Finding joy in this moment.
And that's where true happiness, true contentment can be found.
It's funny, he connects this dying to the known to how we experience suffering, which at first seems kind of, I don't know.
Counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, like isn't the goal to avoid suffering?
He'd say it's more about understanding it, not seeking it out, but not running from it either.
So not burying those tough emotions.
He uses this image of like trying to outrun your shadow. You can't.
You gotta turn and face it.
Exactly. Real peace, he'd say. It comes from facing what's painful, seeing its root.
He even says suffering can be, I don't know, like a catalyst for growth even.
Krishnamurti wasn't saying go suffer or anything, but he saw that it's in those struggles, facing those hard emotions, that we really learn.
We grow, we develop compassion.
For ourselves and for others, yeah.
Which is so interesting because then he goes on about how this constant chasing after happiness, it can actually lead us right back to suffer.
It's a bit of a paradox, right? He's making a distinction between true, lasting happiness and that fleeting kind of pleasure.
We're so used to just chasing the next good feeling.
The next thing to buy, the next achievement.
That never really satisfies.
It's like we're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. Remember that sunset analogy?
Oh, of course.
When you really let yourself experience it, no distractions, that's a kind of joy that comes from within.
Not from something external.
Right. So how do we get off that treadmill then? How do we stop chasing and actually let happiness arise?
Yeah, good question.
You can say it's about letting go. Letting go of that part of us that's always seeking, always wanting more.
That enjoyer part of us, he calls it.
Right. What if, instead of chasing some future happiness, we were present in this moment?
Appreciating what's already here.
Now you're getting it.
And this dying to the known, it's not just an individual thing, is it?
No, he talks about it in relationships too. He has this really intense line, actually.
Oh, I bet I know which one you mean. Lay it on me.
To meet death, he says, you have to die every day to everything. You have to die to your wife so that you can look at your wife anew.
Okay, wow. Intense, for sure. But we're not talking about, like, emotionally abandoning our loved ones, right?
No. It's about seeing them with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
without all the baggage.
So, like, instead of projecting all my stuff on my partner,
You try to really see them, who they are in this moment.
hit the refresh button on your perceptions.
Exactly. And that goes for everyone, not just romantic relationships, family, friends, even strangers.
Just acknowledging that everyone has their own value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we approach people like that, that's where those deeper connections can happen.
So dying to the known in relationships means letting go of control.
Letting go of the need to change people, fix them.
Just being present with who they are.
Right on. And it's that same openness, that dying, that's so important for true learning too, right?
He's really big on that distinction between just knowing stuff and that deeper kind of learning.
It's not about memorizing. It's about cultivating a mind that's, well, open, curious.
Always ready to keep learning. Which reminds me, he talks about being an outsider.
Oh yeah, he saw the danger in just going along with the crowd, blindly following ideologies.
He wanted us to be skeptical, question everything.
Think for ourselves.
Especially if it's something we think we already know, keep that beginner's mind.
He'd say true knowledge, wisdom. It's not something someone just gives you, it's something you discover. Through experience.
Through being really, truly engaged with the world.
Open heart, open mind. That's how we learn.
And then there's the whole dying to the known when it comes to time itself.
Oh yeah, his ideas about time, they really make you think.
He was saying that we're so stuck on the past and the future that we miss the present moment.
Which is crazy, because it's all we really have. He called it, what was it? The present is the eternal.
Whoa. Yeah, when we're truly present, not lost in regrets or worries, it's like we step outside of time.
And that's where a lot of fear comes from, he'd say. Especially the fear of death.
Because we're so scared of what we don't know, what's going to end.
We cling to the past, even if it's not good for us.
Trying to hold on to water. Or like you said, outrun your shadow.
He said real freedom from that fear comes from understanding time, seeing it not as this fixed thing,
but as something our minds create.
So we can't control time, obviously. We can't hold on to the past or predict the future.
All we can do is be here now.
And maybe that's the point. To let go of that idea of me that continues through time. And just be open to this moment. And it's interesting how Krishnamurti ties this all together, like this inner transformation, this dying to the known. He says it's not just some personal thing. It affects the whole world.
So it's not enough to just work on ourselves. There's a bigger picture here.
He saw it as all connected, like real change in the world. It starts with individuals being willing to look at their own stuff, their conditioning, their prejudices.
All those patterns that keep us stuck.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to get into the big issues. Greed, violence, the pursuit of power.
Those things cause so much suffering.
And he said those patterns, they're not just individual flaws, they're baked into our societies.
So how do we break free? Was he advocating for some kind of revolution?
He called it an inward revolution. Because violence, for him, it was a symptom of that inner struggle for security, that fear that makes us cling to what we know.
So outer peace starts with
inner peace. When we can understand and then go beyond that fear, that desire, that's where real peace can happen. In ourselves, and then maybe in the world.
Which reminds me, he was pretty critical of nationalism, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He saw how people justify horrible things in the name of their nation.
Yeah.
Sacrificing the present for some idealized future.
That may never even happen.
Right, and he said that kind of thinking, that blind devotion, it just keeps the cycle of conflict going.
So what's the alternative?
He has this great quote. Hold on, let me find it. When the individual is in conflict within himself, he says, he must inevitably create conflict without, and only he can bring about peace within himself, and so in the world, for he is the world.
Wow. So it's not about changing the world out there, but
changing ourselves.
But how does that work? If I find inner peace, does that magically make the world a better place?
It's not magic, but he would say it starts with awareness. Like each of us recognizing our part in these bigger systems.
Our thoughts, our words, our actions.
It all ripples out, creates our collective reality.
It's like that idea that even a small act of kindness
can have a huge impact.
And that ties into what he says about questioning authority, right? But he wasn't saying we should just be against all rules, was he?
No, not at all. It was more about thinking critically, not just blindly accepting what you're told. Even from people you trust, even
experts.
Especially experts. He felt like blind obedience to anything governments, religions, even our own beliefs. That's where a lot of problems start.
So dying to the known on a bigger level means what? Questioning those systems, even if they're really ingrained in society?
Say real change, true transformation, it requires letting go of the old, the comfortable, even if it's scary.
To embrace something new?
He said it beautifully. To live is the greatest revolution.
He was talking about a revolution of the mind, wasn't he?
A shift from fear and division to understanding, connection.
It's a beautiful idea.
And he wasn't naive. He wasn't offering simple solutions, just pointing away, inviting each of us to look inward, to see our potential to be part of that change.
And that journey, as we've been talking about, it starts with that willingness to let go, to die, to those old ways of thinking, those things that separate us.
To realize that we're all interconnected.
He ends by asking this really powerful question. Can true compassion arise not through cultivated effort, but through a deep understanding and transcendence of the self?
It makes you think, right? Like, what if compassion isn't something we force? What if it's a natural result of understanding, of realizing our shared humanity?
It's a pretty incredible vision for the world, isn't it? Where peace and justice aren't imposed from outside, but come from within.
It's a reminder that this dying to the known, this inner work we do, it's not selfish. It's actually the most powerful thing we can do to create a better world.
Well, that was quite a deep dive into the world of J. Krishnamurti. Thanks for joining us on this exploration.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember, keep those minds open, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into ideas that matter.